Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the City of Waukegan Truth and Taxation hearing, the 20th of December 2010. I just want to let you know this is the first one of these that we have done in over 10 years, so we're going to do our best to make sure everything is done right. We have Ms. Julie Tappendorf with us this evening, who is helping to moderate this event. And basically, this is not a debate. You will not have responses from the City Council during the course of your comments. We are here to listen, and I would ask that I know that there's a great deal of emotion attached to this. People are upset. But I would ask that you keep your comments civil, that you do your best not to attack any individuals during the course of your comments. And the aldermen up here understand that this is not a debate and a back and forth. So I would request that you make your statements, and we allow 3 minutes for each individual to speak. There's a sign-up sheet at the back door. If you wish to speak, you need to have your name on the sign-up sheet, and everybody will be given a chance to speak that has signed up. While we show this from 6 to 7, if we do run over, we will just continue until we are finished. If we go past 7 o'clock, we will then adjourn the regular City Council meeting, and that will begin. And of course, during the course of the City Council meeting, we do allow 30 minutes for public comment, 3 minutes per person, which obviously the math gives us 10 individuals who can speak. So again, as I said, please try not to get too angry, try not to yell, no obscenities, and let's try to get through this in a civil way. The future of the City of Waukegan is at stake here, and I understand that, as I said before, that this is an emotional issue, but I think we can get through it just by simple comments and then stepping away from the podium to allow the next person to speak. So, Julie?
Yeah, first we'd like to have the city clerk take the roll.
Alderman Needham.
Present.
Alderman Larson.
Present.
Alderman Rivera.
Present.
Alderman Cunningham. Alderman Conkin. Alderman Moiseo.
Present.
Alderman Figueroa.
Present.
Alderman Newsom.
Present.
Alderman Tempest.
Present.
Thank you very much. We have a quorum, and we will begin.
We would open it up to the public. Again, this is a public hearing that's required by state statute. It's called the Truth and Taxation hearing. This is not the time period where the City Council will actually adopt the tax levy. That's on the regular agenda. And there are a couple of different options. What the city is looking for is for your comments, for your testimony. This was a meeting or a hearing that was noticed to the public, so we can probably do this in order. I think the city clerk is getting the sign-up sheet, so when we get the sign-up sheet, then we'll call people in order that they've signed up.
And I'd also like to ask if someone has said what you would like to say at that time, if someone goes before you. This is a bit unusual, but I wanted to ask, would it be untoward if I asked people to raise their hands that were in agreement, and those that maybe were signed up to speak, if what's been said, if you raise your hand and do agree with what was said, then if you would like to skip your turn, that would probably save us some time. If you'd rather not, if you'd rather just like to speak, obviously that opportunity is there for you as well.
Yeah, we can do it that way, or if I call your name and someone said that something that you were going to say and you want to say, I agree with so-and-so, that's fine. So I'm going to go down the list and call your name, and then if you please come up, make sure you speak into the microphone. Thank you. I'm sorry, do you have a question? It's right here.
It was on the door, sir, right where you entered in, right in the middle there.
I've got half of it if we want to take the other half and
Could leave the other half.
leave the other half maybe.
Sure.
There you go. Okay, the first person that signed up is C. Todd Binning. I'm sorry if I butcher your name.
And I will let each speaker know when the 3 minutes has lapsed. So, and if you would please give your name and address, and then once you're done giving your name and address, I will start the timer.
My name is Todd Binning, and I reside at 1617 MacArthur Drive here in Waukegan. Let me just preface the statement that I'm about to make. I've been following this issue. I've been involved coming to council meetings this up in the fall. I play cribbage, so as soon as you hear me make my statement, you'll see me dash out the door to make my cribbage meeting tonight. But I've been following this issue, looking at the arguments, looking at the straightforwardness and factualness of what's being presented, and I see that happening. And so with that in mind, this proposed levy increase will up the average household proposed tax burden anywhere from roughly $300 to $900, or an average of about $600 annually. But if you break that down to a daily rate, you're talking anywhere from right around $1 to maybe $3 a day. And I understand a lot of us are on fixed income, and you'll hear me talk about my fixed income situation here. I'm a person that's been unemployed for 21 months, and I know some of these council members know me, and some of the other people in this audience know me. You know, I'm not a deadbeat. I was a professional out there for 22 years in the environmental health and safety field. So, you know, that hurts, and it hurts getting your income slashed by 75%. And it's a real adjustment, and I've made that adjustment. So I'm struggling, like a lot of you, on fixed incomes. Yet, if the community is to prosper, and that's really the issue at hand here, the community, not the individual. If the community is to prosper, then we need to capitalize on the economic resurgence that's bound to happen, as predicted by economists in 2014. And what that means for any community is having the best bond rating that's out there and having a balanced budget, basically. So with those things in mind, I plead to this council that I believe that it's in the best interest of the Waukegan community to act responsibly and vote for an increase in this tax levy. I know that that may be hard words for a lot of people out there in the audience. It's hard words for me to say. It's hard words for my parents who are on fixed incomes. And maybe some of you are in their situation, but as being on fixed incomes as seniors, they also basically retired and they have a commercial building here in Waukegan. They're responsible for that tax burden. We've had these statements at home and in these conversations. They understand what that means for the best interest of Waukegan, and it really is a community issue. So that's what I have to say. Thank you.
Okay. Next, we have Charles E. Is it Lackey? Lakey?
Mr. Mayor and Alderman, my name is Chuck Lakey. I live at 5531 Hilltop Lane in Daybreak Farm subdivision. I sponsor Warren Township Schools. I'm in Ward 3 voting. I have responded to Alderman Rivera in District 9, and I have a Libertyville zip code. It's a little bit difficult to try to say I need to support what's going on in downtown Waukegan. And yet our taxes in Daybreak Farms have been risen in the last 10 years over 45 to 50%. Our assessed evaluations have gone up 60, and they keep going up. And yet this year we thought we might get a little bit of a reprieve because of the assessed evaluation going down because of the way the homes are being sold. And what you're doing is trying to add on more taxes to me. I don't know where the guy got the $600. Maybe that was on the average $150,000 home that was mentioned here the other night. But for us, it's going to be between $3,000 and $4,000 to $6,000 a year, and we just can't afford it. There's a lot of people there who are on fixed incomes, like he mentioned, but what is happening is that it's forcing people to reevaluate the investment that they put in this community through their homes, and they're going to have to sell it. The trouble is, you can't sell it because you can't get the market price for it, so we've got to pay the taxes. So I'm here to urge our aldermen to vote this, any tax increase, any levy increase, down. If the message in the month of November was any indication, we're going to continue to try to fight tax increases no matter where we go, regardless of whether the Genesee Theater needs it or whether the downtown needs it or whatever it is. We just don't feel that this is right. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. John Frostburg.
Alderman, Mayor, my name is John Frostburg. I live at 1570 Rudd Court in the Meadowwoods subdivision in Waukegan. I've spent 65 of my 75 years here residing in the city. I went through the Waukegan school system myself. I raised 3 children. They all went through the Waukegan school system. So I'm just citing those things so you understand I have a deep concern for this city. 2 years ago, I believe the tax rate per hundred in this city was $1.12. Last year, you raised it to $1.64, which with my arithmetic says that's a 46% increase. I think that's rather aggressive all in itself. And now I think the purpose of this meeting tonight is for some of the administration wants to raise some more funds by taxing the homeowners more. I'm adamantly against that idea. I think most of you sitting up here and many of the people in the audience are under similar circumstances. We have a given amount of income, and that's what we have to live on. If our income reduces, which for many of us it has in recent times with the economic situation, we have to reduce our spending. And we have no taxpayer group to turn to say, we're going to charge you more money so we can live and spend as much as we've been spending before, or more than we've been spending before. So I think the city of Waukegan at this time, in this economic climate, has to figure out a way to run the city on their present level of income, and not with some increase to $2.54 a thousand, something like that. The first man that spoke up here said the highest increase in a home's taxes would be about $900. Well, with the increase that was touted in the newspaper, my personal income tax levy just for the city of Waukegan, 2 line items, city of Waukegan and city of Waukegan pensions, would be about $2,600. That's not peanuts. That's over $200 a month. I also happen to represent a lot of residents in the Meadowwoods homeowners, Meadowwoods subdivision, in their homeowners association, and they pretty much agree with everything that I'm saying here right now. So I would plead with you and admonish you to not raise the tax levy this year. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you. Bill Valko.
Mayor, Councilman, good evening. My name is Bill Valko, and I'm here tonight representing the Fraternal Order of Police, Lodge Number 5 in Waukegan as president. At the council meeting on November 15th, the finance director brought forth 3 proposals which are intended to partially or completely cover the anticipated shortfall for next year's budget and thereafter. The first proposal, increasing the tax rate from $1.64 to $1.85 per $100 of assessed valuation, would raise the 17% portion of my real estate taxes paid to the city by over $200. The second option, raising the tax rate to $1.91, would raise my taxes approximately $300. The third option, which is what Ms. Smigelski would like to see happen, would raise my taxes from $9,400 a year to well over $10,000. As it stands now, before any anticipated increase, I have to put almost $800 a month in the proverbial envelope just to pay my taxes. The second portion of the report dealt with pensions and how the city will have to fund the police and fire pensions. We've all read or heard about how the city of Chicago and the state of Illinois pension systems are woefully underfunded due to politicians raiding those funds to pay for the Chicago public schools and to fund state projects. This is not the case with the Waukegan police and fire pensions. Chicago police, the state police, and the counties have their own pension systems. Every other municipality that has a population of over 5,000 citizens can opt through referendum to get into a downstate pension system, which Waukegan is, but has its own separate retirement fund. In 1970, 54 Waukegan police officers were fired. They had 6 months to 19 and a half years of service when they were fired. They were paid out from the pension fund on only what they had put in. No matching payments from the city, no accrued interest, and they did not nor will ever receive a pension. 1977 through 85 were years of turmoil within the police department, and an abnormally high amount of officers resigned again, receiving only their pension contribution. For those of you in the audience that do not know, sworn officers put in 9.9% of their base pay every check, and by statute and contract, the city is supposed to match that amount, but it has not. The reason is there is a formula that the actuaries use to tell the city how much they have to put in based on how many officers they think will retire and at what pay scale. Consequently, the fund is never fully funded. For years, our police fund was being audited by a firm that the city hired, and we were always told that the fund was funded between approximately 60 and 70%, which is an acceptable level. The pension board recently hired another firm by the name of Tepfer, who Ms. Smigelski has called one of the best firms in the business to do the actuarial tables, as the numbers just didn't seem to be right. What the new firm found was that the fund is only about 45% funded. And why? Because of the lackluster performance of our funds within our portfolio the previous 2 years, and because the city has not been putting in their share. And when the city does not put in their share, there is no recourse.
I'm sorry, Mr. Valko, but your 3 minutes are up, sir. But if,
Mayor,
but
with all due
if
respect,
you'd like
sir,
to take another minute or two, would you be able to wrap it up?
No. And with all due respect, Wednesday when I spoke to you, sir, at the luncheon, you said you'd let everybody go. The 3-minute rule was going to be for the council meeting.
Okay.
So mine's about 9 minutes. Is that?
Well, the problem, Mr. Valko, is that if we do that, then everyone will expect 9 minutes.
Well, again, sir, with all due respect, you told me if the council meeting started at 9 or 10 o'clock, it didn't matter.
Yeah, would it be possible for you to provide the council with your report so they could read it individually?
I'll give you the last paragraph.
Okay. Thank
Then
you.
I'll provide it. Yes, sir. Thank you. Anticipating a 2% rental tax and increases in rental inspection fees are not the way out. Increase the hotel tax and add 0.25% city's sales tax if you must. Increase the tax levy at a minimum level and do not hinder the process of video gaming coming within the next 6 months. Per the Illinois Municipal League, each tavern is eligible for 5 gaming machines with an anticipated revenue of $11,000 per year as the city's portion. We have 22 to 25 taverns which could opt in. That's approximately $240,000 to $270,000 per year in additional revenue for the city. We have lost the proposed casino to Park City, and with it the $1 million a month in anticipated revenue, all because of beliefs that were not in line with the financial situation of the city. Mayor, members of the council, the good people of Waukegan will not take much more in reductions of the workforce, resulting in reduced services or personal safety. They will not take any giant increase in taxes without repercussions. I personally know each one of you on the dais, and each one of you is a reasonable person. You have common sense, and all come from an era when common sense was common. Listen to the citizens at the podium tonight, out in the corridors before the council meeting, and during the audience time, and vote no to option number 3, and look at either of the other 2 options. It is time to tell the citizens that you tried to do what you could on the platform that you ran on, but it didn't completely work. Then meet with your constituents after tonight, listen to their ideas, roll up your sleeves, and attempt to find other sources of revenue to bring this great city back to some form of fiscal stability. And I thank you, sir.
We're going to go ahead, and if there are people that want to take 5 minutes, that's fine. We certainly want to make sure that everybody has an opportunity. This one went over a little bit. We don't want to cut off anyone else. Obviously, if there are things that you agree with someone else, there's no need to have to repeat it in detail. Just say you agree with so-and-so. But certainly everybody here will have an opportunity. The next person on here is Peter Nordigan.
I'm Pete Nordigan, 301 West Eagle Court, Waukegan, the Tradition Subdivision. The first thing is a point of order, and that is with relative to this so-called rule that you have adopted, and I don't know where it's contained in any statutory provision of the state of Illinois. I do not believe you have the right in a public hearing such as this to limit the comments to 3 minutes or 5 minutes. And I would ask that the members of the council right now take a vote as to which members of the council want to enforce that and which do not.
Thank you, Mr. Nordigan, but it certainly is within, it is not in a state statute that you cannot limit. It is within the due process. It is a public hearing, and the council and the chair of the council, which is the mayor, has the right to set reasonable rules for how the hearing, or we could be here for 3 weeks.
Well,
3 minutes is certainly a reasonable amount of time, which we've obviously shown that we can go over if people have a little additional that they want to talk. But yes, it is within Illinois due process law to have the ability to set limits on hearings.
Due process law, but not statutory law.
There is no limit. It says that you hold a
Yes.
public hearing, and that is by case law that interprets what is a public hearing and what is due process. And yes, you do have the right to set reasonable limits.
I'm going to proceed. I will tell this and preface it by telling you that about 40 years ago, I was the one that filed a lawsuit against the county of Lake and invalidated the entire assessment for the entire county of Lake. And I think that if you proceed on this course of action, that you are subjecting the city of Waukegan to that. I know by home rule authority you can have a maximum of 5% exceeded by the public hearing. I was a municipal attorney for over 35 years. I personally prepared appropriation and tax levy ordinances, and never in the history of my tenure or of any tenure that I'm aware of in the entire United States has an increase such as this been proposed. There is an article that was on the internet the other day which pointed out the Waukegan profile that someone tried to get a 12% increase, and that was unheard of. I think this is unprecedented, and I have personally handled last year over $2 billion worth of tax assessment matters. I think this is outrageous. Last week we witnessed a partnership between Republicans and Democrats and the president, whereas they said that Bush tax cuts should be enforced. The country at the legislative level in Washington recognized the necessity for cutting down on the taxes imposed on people. Now, when we talk about taxes, I'm going to refer you to an incident which happened to me personally. I was the owner of property in the city of Waukegan. I was asked by the zoning and planner, Mark Hagen, if I would annex it to Waukegan. And I said yes, and I signed a letter agreement whereby I would do it on condition that the city would install public improvements. It was passed by the committee, it was passed by the council. When it came time to enforce that provision, the city reneged. And I had even donated a parcel of land for nothing that was worth $59,000 to the city. Subsequently, I went into sort of a partnership, and the land was developed, and I paid for the public improvements. The city did pass a recapture agreement. The recapture agreement said anyone within 100 feet must connect into the sewer or water, I believe it was water, on 30 days notice or something like that. I came to the city and I said, we have 13 homes that are within 100 feet. And their response within the past year was, economic times are difficult and we cannot, in good conscience, require anyone to obey our ordinances. So you're saying, hey, property owner, we don't care about you, but we need the money and we're going to tax you for that. A similar provision took place relative to the lakefront property, the park down there, which I used to own. The Port District comes along and says, we're going to condemn your property for parking purposes. 10 years later, it was never developed as a park. It was just a ruse to get my land. There are some other things that I look at and see, and that is that our developments in Waukegan have gone to pot. Look at the Genesee Theater, $25 million. The improvements that have taken place down there, the parking garage, the municipal restaurant and other facilities that were to take place, all dead. And why? Because Waukegan is seen as a city that is decaying like Gary, Indiana. 6 months ago, I filed a request for information under the Freedom of Information Act with the city of Waukegan. What did I get? Nothing. As of today, that response has never been answered. I always get good cooperation from the city clerk, Mr. Motley, but certainly on this one, which is preparatory to litigation, I have never received a thing. Again, the city of Waukegan ignores its ordinance for its convenience. The city of Waukegan has allowed construction of buildings in violation of its ordinance, which I have pointed out. The city does nothing about it. Next to me is a foundation with pipes sticking up out of the ground, and it's been there for going on 6 years now. I talked to the city over and over again. What are you going to do about it? It's a violation of the ordinance. We don't do anything. I had a question that came up when my identity was stolen for a purchase in Georgia. I furnished the police department with the information as to how, when, and where, and all they had to do was to call, and the credit card company said, we will advise you of the name and address of the person that stole your identity. The police department, no, it's in Georgia. We're not going to do a thing about it.
Mr. Nordigan, you have run to your 5-minute limit, sir.
Would you like to summarize?
Would you like to summarize and
No, I
close?
think
With respect
I've
to
said
the
enough,
tax levy?
except
Thank
to
you.
Okay.
point out that Waukegan at this time has an unemployment rate in excess of 15%. And you're going to impose upon the city of Waukegan a potential increase in their real estate tax bills of an inordinate amount. It may not be 55% or 75%, but it's certainly going to be something. And as I said, it would be unprecedented, and I think it would go in the Guinness Book of Records. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Mark Loeb.
Hello, my name is Mark Loeb. I live at 1731 Mancy Court. That's off of River Road in Waukegan. Couple comments. People that are in, we have a little 6-lot little enclave that we're on Mancy Court, and I'm kind of a representative for our group, and we are against the additional taxes. Another point that I would like to make, we have, in the last couple of years, we annexed a piece of property on 120 in River Road for a new 41-unit development that, you know, economy-wise, we're on hold right now, but we'd like to think in the next couple of years, that's a development that we would like to be able to start. And I think one of the things that would be very hurtful, number one, for anybody living on River Road is to sell your house with an additional real estate tax added to what we already pay, which is a very, very high tax in comparison to what Libertyville is. But the second point is I think we'd have a very difficult time with a new development on 120 and River Road with an additional tax base that you're proposing, and just to let you know that we would be against it also. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Is it Selke?
I'm Dee Selke and I have laryngitis, so bear with me. I only heard about this morning.
Could you give us your address, please?
Yes, I'm at 1701 Lakeview Terrace in Daybreak Farms. And so I'm not going to come up here and have a profound impact. I agree that the economy globally is hurting everywhere. And we've got government that's trying to fix everything. What I'm up here to ask is, and I know Mr. Rivera would very much do so, and I just ask, my husband lectures globally on the impacts of local trends, national and international trends, and how it affects all of us. And so all I ask is if he becomes educated on this more, and he has an opinion, would you please just listen to him? Thank you.
Thank you. Diane Miller? Thank you. Robert Schwab?
Mayor, motion to seat Alderman Cunningham.
Yes, we have a motion to seat Alderman Cunningham by Alderman Moiseo, seconded by Alderman Newsom. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it.
Thank you. Thank you, Alderman Moiseo.
I'm Robert Schwab. I live in the city of Waukegan. I represent the Schwab Partnership, which is a few brothers of mine. We own a bunch of apartments and single-family homes. It's getting harder and harder to rent in the city of Waukegan. And the problem we're having is we can't raise the tax. We cannot raise our rents to match the taxes of what they've raised it over the years. So I would hope the aldermen would look at it strong and hard and vote no. I do have the #1 rating in Lake County, and it does have the apartments in Waukegan. I represent them just like they represent us. And I'd really appreciate it if they take a good, hard look at it. Thank you. To vote
you.
no.
Sue Young? Sure.
My name is Peter Young, 3161 North Southern Hills Drive in Wadsworth mailing address, but I am a Waukegan resident. I'm in Mr. Larson's ward. I am president of a homeowners association, and I'm speaking for myself, but also for many of the constituents that I represent within our subdivision. And I know that all of you are really struggling with this issue. You know, you work very hard and you're trying to balance a budget in a really tough economy. And frankly, we as homeowners are trying to do the same thing. Our incomes are not going up. Many of them are going down or going down to zero. So I guess we have empathy for the plight that you have of how do you sustain an ongoing business, which is what you're running, with declining revenues. And that is a big challenge. And I think the one thing you may not have considered is that there's an unusual situation in our area, that some of the homeowners in our area, their property is taxed at 3% instead of 2.5%. There's an inequity that's already built in. And then if you superimpose a double-digit increase in taxes on top of that, in this economy, it's just the wrong timing. I understand the challenge that you have, but I don't think that's the way to go about it. And I think if you have a strong business plan that you would like to present to the residents to show how the money is going to be used, where it's going, what budget cuts you're making, you might find a receptive audience. But I don't think that's been well communicated at all. And I think that some serious reflection and consideration is still needed on your part. And I say that with a lot of compassion because I know you are all very dedicated workers. But I really think the timing is wrong, the economy is wrong, and the business plan is really non-existent or not well communicated. And so I'd encourage you to solve some of the other taxing problems, like 3% tax rates instead of 2.5% tax rates. You've already got some horrendous inequities built in, and we aren't dealing with those either. So I appreciate your time this evening, and I yield the floor.
Thank you.
Thank you. You know, one thing is that, just so you know, sir, that anybody that goes to our website, we have that information available on our website, and that has been posted for a considerable amount of time. Our budget, line item, everything is up there. So it is available to the public and has been for quite a while. But
If I relied on my total business on the website, I'd be out of business. I think you have to do a little bit more in communicating with the residents.
okay, thank you. Just wanted to let you know that information is there.
Rolando, is it Villafuente? Forte.
Rolando Villaforte. I live in the Bonnybrook subdivision. I'm also the president of the labor organization for our patrolmen. Reason why I'm here is obviously this tax levy is going to have a huge impact on our membership. At our union meeting this past week, we're already preparing our membership for a no vote. Everybody knows it's not a popular concept. I also pay taxes in the city. I agree with Bill Valko. It's going to be hard for everyone. And as I said, we're preparing for a vote of no for the 55% increase. Now, one of the things that he mentioned is generating revenue other ways. We got to find somewhere else to find money or to have money to pay for our services. Especially the police and fire. I'm here as a representative of the police union anyway, so I can't really speak on behalf of the fire. But on our end, there is a grant that's there that we've been awarded. The city's been awarded. It was originally meant for the hiring of 8 new officers. Is excess of $2.25 million. But what hasn't been mentioned is that there's been no mention to it to the public, aside from a press release that we issued. Those grant funds can be reallocated to the retention of officers slotted to be laid off. And obviously, if this tax levy doesn't pass, which it probably won't, there's probably going to be some cuts, and we're expecting loss in manpower. I just like it to be the council to acknowledge that and bring it out of the finance committee where it's been stuck for over a month and tell people about it. At least, if nothing else, file for the extension for this grant, because if we're heading that direction, it'd be nice to have $2.25 million for our officers. And yes, it does mean that we have to maintain our current staffing levels for 4 years, but you know, let's hope to God that 4 years from now we're still not having these kind of conversations. We got to find something. We got to do something. You're all up there. These are your decisions. We have to move in a positive direction. But I really would like the city to acknowledge that there is a grant and they would at least consider accepting it. But the filing deadline for that is, or to accept that grant is at the end of this month. So we need to get a move on that. That's really all I have to say for right now.
Thank you. Terry Ling.
Thank you. Terry Link, 811 Sheridan Road. I'm going to talk about something a little bit different. My daytime job is I'm the senator of the 30th District, and I represent Waukegan besides living in Waukegan. And there's a piece of legislation that we haven't talked about tonight, and I'm the author of the bill and the chief sponsor of this bill. And it's sitting on the governor's desk today. And I want to talk about, first, before I talk about that, I want to talk about another bill that was passed. And that was a pension reform bill that was passed and signed into law that affected every other public pension employee. And it was passed and signed into law in May of this year. And it affected every municipal employee, every county employee, every state employee, judges, you name it. They were all affected. There's a two-tier system now. So anybody after January 1 will have a different system. All of them have lower age requirement is raised. All their effects are in effect of lower requirements of pension. So it will have an effect to helping the pension system as we see. But the police and fire, it was a different effect. Because we had to look at it, we wanted to look at the police and fire in a different way because we didn't want police and fire to work to 67 years old. We wanted to look at their benefits and that. And we sat down and I authored this bill and worked with them. And we negotiated that bill for close to a year. And I want to compliment the police and fire for sitting in those rooms. They were not nice rooms to sit in. And I want to compliment the municipal league for sitting in those rooms also. And as Mr. Bill Valko said, we have 600 and some odd municipality pensions that we deal with in the state. It's not just one that we deal with, it's over 600. So when we sit down with it, there's different ideas and all that in each room that we're sitting with. From a city of the size of Chicago to cities that have maybe 500, 600 people in it, and we're looking at them in different avenues. And they might have 3 or 4 sworn officers, or they might have the amount that the city of Chicago has. And we're looking at it in every perspective of what we can do. And we came up with a piece of legislation that will affect all of these communities. Some of them, well, I should say, let's put it this way. No one walked out of that room happy when we passed that piece of legislation except one group. And that's people sitting in this room, the taxpayers of the state of Illinois, walked out happy. Because every municipality will come out a winner in the sense. I have been getting thank you letters throughout the entire state of Illinois. And I'll use one as an example. A neighboring community, Buffalo Grove, will be saving over $400,000 a year in their police and fire pension bill that they have to pay in every year. Joliet, Rock Island, Elgin, you name it, Rockford, communities throughout this state have been sending me letters, comments, the Lake County Municipal League, thanking me for what has happened on this legislation because it has proven that they will save money with this piece of legislation. It will help Waukegan also. The reason I'm standing up here is because this little piece of legislation, I have never told another governmental unit how to vote on anything, and I'm not going to start tonight. Because even though I get phone calls from them asking me how to vote and telling me how they would like me to vote on issues, and I listen, but I'm not going to start and telling them how to vote on an issue, even though it affects me directly in my pocketbook, how they vote tonight. But I do have to explain this piece of legislation because it hasn't been getting the press. And I doubt if very few people in this room know about this legislation. But it has a huge effect on tonight. Because what it is allowing, the biggest effect, is we allowed this mortgage, or I should say, this piece of pension to be like your mortgage. They were able to refinance it. So instead of it coming due in 2033 at 100%, we allowed them to re-amortization of it to 2041 at 90%. So even though it only affects the new hirees after January 1 of this coming year, it allowed them a huge savings for their existing employees that are under this system. This will save the city of Waukegan, plus it allows them to pay out this pension, stretch it out over the years. We also allowed them a 5-year window from now until 2015 before we force them into paying like they have to do in the municipal pension fund, which is what if you don't pay the piper, the state withholds the money that we owe you, and we pay the pension fund. That's why the municipal fund is fully funded. And I know the mayor has given me the 5-minute warning, but Mayor, I have to say something, and I have to agree with Peter Nordigan. I just came from a 5-hour legislative hearing on a bill that wasn't as big of an effect as this, and we let people talk for as long as they wanted to. And I will end up on this, but I do have to agree with Mr. Nordigan. You might quote statute, but the statute is mean to be broken sometimes when it comes to stuff like this, because people should be allowed to speak their mind on something of this magnitude. And I'm not being disrespectful, because I'll never be disrespectful to elected official, because we all have a position to hold. But I think at this time, we have a responsibility to listen to every voter. I have listened to voters. I've got and I'll be polite, chewed out many of times. And you know what? I listen, because they are the people that put us into office. They are the people that take us out of office. But I just wanted to explain this bill. If anybody ever wants to ask me questions about this bill, you could contact me at any time. I will explain it more. And if the offer goes to the alderman, to anybody in the city, I will explain this bill even further, but it will be a huge savings to the city of Waukegan. And to end it on one note that no one else has ended it on, happy holidays to everybody. God bless you.
Thank you, Senator.
This next one's very hard to read, so bear with me. I think it says John J.O.M. something. Thank you, sir.
Your Honor, question for it is, I know the senator's here. Senator, does anyone have a copy of that, Senator Link? That bill? Does anyone have a copy of it, or is there any way we can get a copy?
Alderman, we have it.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Good evening. My name is John OMara. I'm at 3177 North Southern Hills Drive. I'm in the Links of Mid-Lane, Villas Associated of Mid-Lane, and they also have Cambridge. So there's about 450 homes over there. And I think there are a couple of people here besides myself who are over 65. And unfortunately, as you may or may not know, the Social Security has not increased. Gas prices are increased. I just got finished appealing my property taxes with the county. They increased. At some point in time, you as people in the city have to take the same kind of steps that we do. You have to cut your costs. That means perhaps taking wage cuts, not granting wage cuts, being a little bit more specific as to how you spend the money, being responsible, because it is our money that you're talking about. And I think this is one of the things that's a problem, not only with the city, the county, the state, and the federal government. Last night on 60 Minutes, they talked about a $1 trillion budget deficit in the country for all the governmental bodies. That doesn't include the $14 trillion in the United States government. And I think at some point in time, you people have to recognize you have to cut your costs the same as we do. I'd like to have a lot of things, can't afford them, got to cut back. You've got to do the same thing. Thank you.
We
you.
have some seats available up front. People are standing up.
Mark, is it Speciale?
While he's walking up, we have some seats available up front. We got about 7, I see about 8 seats. People want to sit down. You know, we have a certain capacity for the room.
Thank you. Please, go ahead.
Thank you. My name is Mark Speciale. I live at 1559 South Candlestick Way. I'm in the Fields of Cambridge subdivision. And I just want to let you know, I moved to Waukegan specifically because I thought Waukegan was a great melting pot of people, and I like the culture and diversity in Waukegan. So that's one of the reasons why I moved here. And I moved here bought a house when I was 26 years old. And my house value has slowly declined, and yet my taxes have gone up about $1,000 since I have moved here. And my income over the last 2 years has gone down about 65%, and I personally cannot afford an increase in taxes myself, as I'm sure the rest of the people in the community cannot afford it. I am also the president of my homeowners association, and when I took over my books, like you, I'm sure, I had to look at what was going on, and my books were bleeding red. And the first thing I wanted to do was raise assessments, and I couldn't necessarily raise it what I wanted to, and I slowly had to raise it 2%, 3%, and eventually, you know, we're back in the black, but you know, I couldn't necessarily do what I wanted to do as well. But you know, every day I drive into what's Fountain Square now, and I see all this open land that goes undeveloped, and I'm very perplexed why we have all this land that we had to tear down, and it's going to waste. And we have a Walmart that I walk into that almost seems like a disaster whenever I go in there as well, and it seems very sad that our city looks like that. And you know, it's a poor representation for Waukegan, and I think before we start raising our taxes, we really need to fix what we have already, start adding to all this empty space that we were so focused on getting a casino. Now that that's gone, we need to start getting these businesses back in here and start focusing on the good rather than start picking and shaking what's left in my pocket, because there isn't much left, to be quite honest. That's all I have to say.
Tracy Santangelo.
Hello, my name is Tracy Santangelo. I live at 5670 Forest View Lane. Rafael Rivera is my alderman, and I've spoken to you last week and told you that we're really not interested in any kind of an increase. I moved to Illinois in 2005, and my taxes have gone up every year. I am currently a graduate student at UIC, a full-time student, and my tax bill equals my studies, okay? That's quite a bit. And we've heard from people here today who say, I don't have the money, I'm on a fixed income, I've lost my job. We still have people in my community, in my little neighborhood, that have those same concerns. And I ask you, what is the saturation point? At what point do you say, you know what, we can't do this to our citizenry any longer? Every year there's an increase? We have neighbors who cannot sell their homes because one of the concerns by new people coming in is the tax bill. And here you are asking us to give you more money. I just think that's wrong, and I think you need to vote no, every one of you. Even though you don't necessarily represent me, Rafael does, and you represent some of these other people who are asking you. We cannot afford it. Please say no.
Jerrica Pena.
Hi, my name is Jerrica Pena. I live at 509 Sheridan Road. I'd also like to comment that I'm very adamantly against the increase. I agree with many of the individuals who have spoken tonight, not all, but many. I'd like to at least address another concern, which would be the impact to our community from a different angle. to make it so unattractive for any new people to come into our community, that's what a tax increase will do. It also makes it somewhat unattractive to bring new families into Waukegan because of lack of services. We've all had to deal with that as taxpayers as well, less. I've also made inquiries to the city just to change some of my automatic bill payment, and I never get a call back. I never get a follow-up. I've called for other issues as well. So I understand that. I can try and work through that. But as far as this economy, I was really hoping that it would make Waukegan more attractive for people to come in and move into some of the vacant homes or the foreclosed homes. I don't think this kind of an increase would do that at all. And I would hate to see our neighborhoods become more overrun by Section 8 housing, which is a major issue in our community as well. And also, our new families would contribute a lot to the local economy. I was actually encouraged in the spring to see more families out with their children, riding bikes and walking down to the lakefront, which I won't get into that other issue at all. Again, for lack of services or lack of patrols, is also not available to taxpayers in the community. I think as far as what Senator Link talked about with new legislation, I don't know if that's been even factored into this new proposed increase. If this is going to be lower over time, we haven't heard anything about that. I also think the $500,000 for demolition on the Madison Avenue property for CLC is wrong. I thank my alderman, Larry Tenpes, for voting against that. And I will also say that I applaud Edie Newsom, Alderman Newsom, for voting no on this tax increase for the people that she represents in her neighborhoods. You could take that $500,000 and you could probably save a couple of hundred homeowners any type of a tax increase. But that has also not been well thought out. It's one thing to say, bring people into the community, bring the students in. When you have nowhere to go, that's not good. You need to be focusing more on what you're going to do to help businesses come to this community. Higher taxes won't do that, and it certainly won't bring people in that want to live here and have a business. So I really am very much against the tax increase. I hope that you will consider my comments a little bit different from probably some of the other folks here, but thank you very much for your time.
Jose Guzman.
Hi, my name is Jose Guzman. I live at 40 Washington Park. I was here before, and I was against raised taxes in Waukegan. I think they should find a different solution. If you go into Gurnee, you see all the people from Waukegan going to shopping in Gurnee. That mall is packed on the weekends. What do we got in Waukegan? Nothing. We need new business. New business coming to Waukegan. We need new businesses coming to Waukegan so they can pay taxes. If you guys raise the taxes for us, what's going to happen? A lot of our people are going to go live with the families and left the houses because the taxes is too high. They're going to go live in the basements. They're going to go live in the garage, like in the old time. A lot of those houses going to be vacant. Nobody going to be living in there. Next thing you know, the house is going to be burned or falling down apart. They're going to be starting falling apart. So we're going to see Waukegan falling apart instead of going up. So it's a bad idea to raise taxes. And another thing, the taxes is already being raised. What are you guys talking about raising taxes, property taxes? Where are we going to be? Where are we going to go? Since Mr. Bush spent all our money in overseas, we've been suffering. We've been suffering very hard. Now you guys raising the property taxes has already been raised. Please find a different way to get some money for Waukegan. There are some people in the government system that's making too much money. $100,000, $150,000 a year, $200,000 a year. We only making $15,000, $20,000 a year. I mean, now you guys want more money from us? We don't got it. Thank you.
Perry Foster.
How you doing? Perry Foster, 2026 Kingston Road. I got a couple issues. The first one was I know you guys had talked about trying to take the $500 ordinance out of people who do not have valid driver's license or insurance. I hope that you guys do not think about doing this because driving is a privilege, not a right. And if you don't have a driver's license and you don't have insurance, you shouldn't be driving. I've had 2 accidents, both times, no insurance. I paid out of my own pocket. And my insurance goes up because I'm paying for people who don't have insurance. So we shouldn't change it. And for some people who say we should have a tiered system for one person who, they only do it one time, I don't care if it's one time or 20 times. If you're not a valid driver's license, don't have insurance, you shouldn't be driving. My second question is with this grant that the police officers were supposed to have received, why was it never discussed in the city council? Why wasn't it brought to the citizens of Waukegan so that they could contact their aldermen and ask questions of yes or no, was it a valuable, not valuable issues? Why is it decided by 1 or 2 people? I thought we lived in a democracy, not a dictatorship. So I'd like to know is we want to raise taxes, but we want to cut services. We want to bring in $400,000 to demolish the new Sun building, and hopefully CLC gets a grant. That's a hope. You're saying 4 years from now, we're going to be in the same situation we're currently in where we're laying off people and raising taxes. So I hope that we relook at these issues and at least think about accepting the grant so that we do have our protection in the city where we bring people in. Thank you.
Mark Hahn.
Good evening, City Council. My name is Mark Hahn. I live at 104 West Street, and I'll preface my comments by first of all saying I'm a member of the school board, and if anybody's a taxing body, we certainly are, and we take the majority of the taxes. And I certainly don't, I really respect the position you're in. It's not an easy one, a rock and hard place, and you're right in the middle of it right now. And I just want to explain a couple of things from my view on how it's going to affect my business. I run Madison West Apartments, and I can speak on behalf of a number of other landlords and property owners that will be affected by this. Right now, I'm close to about 3 months of my income out of the one building I have going to taxes. And again, I'm not pointing a finger, because if I do, 3 are coming back at me because we're about 60% of that tax bill. But 3 months of my income goes to real estate taxes. If we have to add the additional $30 to $40 per month on to our customers, which is an awful tough thing to do, where are they going to go? Are they going to come here? Are they going to go to Gurnee or surrounding communities that are offering a better rate? If you've purchased your building in the last 6 or 7 years, and I've been around it for a long time, you've heard of what it's like to be underwater. When you add this tax on, you're devaluing that property. It's income expenses. You increase the expenses, you reduce the value of that property, and you're putting people right on the edge. They're going to lose it. They lose it, we all lose. When we were faced with a similar budget crisis, my plea to our board and our administration and our employees and everything was that we all have to share in the pain. And I really admire, and I've called several of you aldermen and the mayor, and I've seen you take a lead role in reducing your own taxes, setting a trend, willing to sacrifice some of your own pay before you go ask others. And I think that's a venue that you need to stay on, because when I go to other businesses and vendors that I'm dealing with constantly, I'm seeing huge layoffs. I'm seeing guys taking 10, 15% cut to keep their job. That's the option they're proposed with. Here, we either all take a cut or we're all going to go out. The new Sun had that happen to them, 15%. And that's not uncommon today, but it's not common to see that in government. Again, I couldn't sell it to our board, and I'm disappointed in that, but you have an option here. Mr. Link, The bill, I really thank you for that bill that you've worked on. The number I got out of Rockford was 1.2 million they were able to save. It is end loading a debt, but in this position right now, anytime I get a chance to reconfigure my debt services, I do it when I can. It's something that needs to be discussed and looked at, and it's a possible option. It possibly could save Rockford from a lot of layoffs. And when you talk about reduction in pay, I know somebody said, well, it's against the law to take a reduction in pay. You know what? I don't think anybody'd be real mad if you broke the law and tested it out. To set the, no, and I'm not trying to make a joke. This is not a joke. This is serious, and these guys are feeling this. I know they are, and I admire what they have to do. It's not easy. So I'm just telling you how it's going to affect myself, my business, my customers. I love Waukegan. I've lived here my whole life, and I don't want to go anywhere. I got to go home across the street, and I like it. I love this town, and I like the fact that we have a council here that works as hard as you do. But I'm asking you to think a little bit outside the box, and I ask for the unions that are here to think about it. You know, don't throw the new guy out on the street. That guy that's just the new guy, the last 10 guys that were hired, don't make them go out in the street. We need the service. We need the police department in full force, and we need more of you. But you got to realize what the situation is. They had 200 openings in Chicago, 10,000 applicants. Okay? You know, there's a balance here, and we have to find it, and we have to all be willing to pitch in. And I plead to the aldermen and to the employees of the city, try to work together. Don't be adversarial. And remember, the taxpayers are footing the bill, and we're a bit broke now, and there's nobody to bail us out. Not that I believe in bailouts too much. I think if you mess up, you need to bite the dust and pick yourself back up.
You're at your 5 minutes, sir.
Well, you know what, I have to say this. I agree. You know, in this forum, I think people should have their chance to say, but I'll wrap it up with that, and I say thank you.
Yeah,
I appreciate your time.
You can summarize.
And please don't rush me out of here.
No, I'm not. I was actually saying if you wanted to
I
summarize
will
what you're
wrap
saying,
it up,
that's
and
fine.
I'll just say thank you very much. I appreciate the time. Thank you.
Jeff Richter.
Mark.
Good evening. My name is Jeff Richter. I live at 630 North Avenue in the Historic District, home that used to belong to my grandmother. My grandparents grew up in Waukegan. My parents grew up in Waukegan. I grew up in Waukegan, and my son plays quarterback for the high school right now. Mark said, you're between a rock and a hard place. I couldn't agree more. Just today, I was renewing an equity loan I have on one of my properties because my son is getting ready to go to college. And out of a formality, they had to get a new appraisal of my home. I also recently got my new notice from the assessor's office about what they think my home is worth. I don't know where you guys are going to get the money because the assessor went ahead and downgraded the assessed value of my home, which isn't going to make any difference to anybody because then they just raise the multiplier and the rate to get to the level that we think we need. But the bank says, but you know, when we do the comparables in your neighborhood, and I did this when I got the assessor's notice, I just went to the second half of the News Sun, which every day is a litany of foreclosures. All of the homes in my neighborhood were listed as foreclosures that the bank quoted. Now, everybody's in agreement that a tax increase will do nothing but hurt everyone. I can't believe there's that many foreclosures in our good neighborhood, our good city. One option that just occurred to me is raise the tax rate on the banks that are paying for the foreclosures until the homes are sold.
Let them pay for the cleanup. Exempt the residents. Although you can't do that either. You got Mark and you got Mr. Schwab, and my family has several properties around town. We don't know how to price apartments anymore. A good going standard is 1% of total value of the home so that you can make your mortgage payment. But if assessments have gone down, and the banks say you're not worth anything, I don't know. I really have complete and total sympathy for the situation you guys are in. We don't know what to do. We don't know how we got to this situation. You're a home rule state and you can do it if you want to, or a home rule city. School district couldn't do that without a referendum. The citizens of Waukegan do want to be well represented. They love their city. Most of the people that you represent are in your neighborhoods. That's the great thing of an aldermanic council. If you raise the taxes, they know who did it. And we all want the city to be great. And I am in the same quandary as you are. Where can you tax? The great tax bases that we had, John Manville, OMC, the car dealerships that we had. So you can't convert it to a sales tax until we build business, but it's not your business to bring business in. I really rock in a hard place. All it does is, I don't know. I'm like Senator Link. I can't tell you what to do. But it reminds me of an article I read shortly after Lehman Brothers went to pot. There was a guy, had no criminal record whatsoever. He just walked up to somebody and shot him in the arm. Complete total stranger. And the police asked him why. What was the reason for this? Did this guy do something? No. I just wanted to go to prison. So I wouldn't have to pay taxes anymore. Good luck. I love you guys.
This is the last name on the list. If there's anyone else that wants to speak while this next person is speaking, please come up and sign. We want to make sure that everyone has an opportunity to have a say. The last name is Judy Alness.
Hi, I'm Judy Alness, and I live at 2511 Lucia Avenue, and I've been a resident of Waukegan my entire life. A couple of things I wanted to go over. First, on the 5-minute rule, just only a second. Please, I hope you listen as closely as you watch the time. Secondly, on the market value of our properties, I'm a mortgage banker, and I noticed that it's assessed over a 3-year period. I would suggest having it assessed over a 2-year period. If you look on the internet and look at Zillow.com, it'll show changes on a 30-day basis. I purchased my home in August of 2004 for $175,000. Tonight, I pulled it up on the internet. It's worth $107,000. That's a 65% drop. Anybody that knows my property knows that it's very well manicured, very well landscaped. And in the meantime, my property is going to go down again because there's a foreclosure right across the street that just went up for sale. It's bank owned as well. Number two, the other thing is that I was here last week, and I felt as though, Mayor, with all due respect, that you were putting us on notice. You were saying the police are going to be gone, the firemen are going to be gone, and you added the fact that we as Waukeganites gave up on ourselves. From all of this here, I don't see anybody giving up on themselves. Perhaps by the tax increase, the council has given up on thoughts of other revenues, which I may suggest, which on the news tonight, in Elgin, they have other revenue streams that they use. For example, with their beet juice and salt water item that they sell the salt. They have other revenues, which is allowed for a tax freeze on the property taxes in Elgin. Something to look at that's on the internet. You did inherit things from the previous people that were in office, that's true, but you also inherited the possibility of the casino that you said had lost. Now casinos were losing 20 to 30%. Being a resident of Waukegan, it would have been nice to have 70 or 80%. Now, in regards to the rentals for Mark Harmon and all the other people that have rentals in the area, again, as a mortgage banker, if you make it more palatable for people to invest in Waukegan, to have more apartments, if you look on the line, the gentleman that applied for the loan, the trouble is that rentals are considered only at 75% of the rent. So in other words, if you receive $1,000 for rent, you're only considered for 75% of that income. Therefore, can make you easier into negative equity, and by raising the taxes, it does so as well. This all becomes a negative process, and as I said, if we can look at the other avenue streams and not cut our policemen, which we need so desperately and even need more of, and look at that police grant that guests never got mentioned, we'd all appreciate it and have respect for both sides. Thank you.
Chris Banks? Blanks, sorry.
Brother Blanks, 409 Oak Street. One of the things, I know nobody's ever in favor of a tax increase, but one of the things that I want to look at is, and what really should be considered, this deficit and this financial crisis that the city is now in is definitely no overnight sensation, so to speak. The type of deficit that we're in, it has taken some time. And I remember, Mayor, you had mentioned that you was looking at having some type of federal investigation into those who had misappropriated the funding. And I think that if the city is going to be taxed with the burden of help lifting this city out of that deficit, I really think that I really want to find out what the status is, because I don't think those who was responsible for putting this city in the deficit that it's now in should be off the hook if the citizens are going to have to pay. So I just want to say that I really hope that you was genuine and looking at that federal investigation into holding those financially responsible that have allowed this city to get into the deficit that it's in. Obviously, there had to be a major degree of corruption. I know there are expenses for this city, but if the citizens are going to have to pay, then we really need to seriously look at holding those responsible who have allowed the city to come to this degree of deficit that we are now in. So seriously look into that federal investigation, and I would like to know at some point, and I think the citizens deserve to know where and what is the status of that federal investigation of holding those accountable for the responsibility of the debt we're in.
John Stein?
Good evening. John Stein, 423 Gillette Avenue. I've been in Waukegan about 6 years. Like some of you, I may have moved here because of the historic properties, etc. Secondly, Waukegan was the last town between Chicago and Milwaukee that hadn't had its change. I thought if I came in, it would be a nice thing to see happen, because it's a great place to be. What I wanted to do, the reason I added my name last on the list, Jerrica mentioned it, and the gentleman from North Avenue brought it up as well. But the valuation here, and I don't know if you guys are cognizant of it, is dropping like a rock. 2 years ago, there were 1,400 properties within the city of Waukegan that were in foreclosure or pre-foreclosure. Today, there are 1,695. So what I did, I took a little list and I created this Excel spreadsheet, and I thought I'd read off some of these properties so you get an idea what they're going for. 1508 North Avenue, $76,000. 624 North Poplar, sold for $37,000. 1429 Hickory, $145,000. 1804 Walnut Street, $110,000. 921 West Pacific, $150,000. 931 North Linden, $97,500. 1606 Brookside Avenue, $79K. 926 North Poplar Street, $40,000. 1107 Woodlawn Court, $43,000. 1019 West Grove, $87,000. So the point of me bringing all this up is that if you look at Waukegan as an outside person, the thing you have to ask is, why would I come to Waukegan when the city council is going to raise taxes, my values are going down, and I'm going to be paying for a 2,000 square foot house higher property taxes than I would be if I went to Gurnee, if I went to Libertyville, even if I went to Lake Bluff. So it's something to keep in mind when we're trying to bring people in, and our values are still heading down. I suggest you punch your own address into Zillow and look and see what you got, including all of you folks. You think you'd be surprised. Thanks very much.
Heather Kroonborg.
I didn't really come really prepared. I wasn't prepared to talk, but I came here 10 years ago.
Your name and address, please.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm Heather Kroonborg. I live at 438 North Genesee Street, 3 doors down from the Julian Towers. Anyway, so I have like a view, a different view sometimes that a lot of you have living so close to something like that. When I did move here, I'm third generation Libertyville, was the first generation that couldn't afford it. And so I bought in Waukegan to have a historic home. And the idea that it was, you know, coming up and it looked promising. So I took a chance. And now, I think when you look at my property taxes, I just can't believe that when you look around at what you see and what I see every day and have to deal with on a daily basis where I live, and I knew I moved there. I knew there was, you know, some sort of repercussions. But this year I have seen it get worse. The violence. I listen to the people as they go by the house, and a lot of them are coming in from the south side of Chicago. And when I hear the police forces being cut, that makes me very nervous. I feel I pay way too much tax right now for what I get for my money. And I personally cannot afford even, I was just raised, I just got my escrow bill and it was already raised $25, $35 just a few months ago. Now if they raise it again, it's going to put me over maybe $100 more per month, that combined with the other tax. I mean, for me to come up with another $100 and to live with what I have to live with poor schools and absolutely nothing, nowhere to go for entertainment, at this point, I'm just hoping that it just doesn't get worse because I've lost hope. But I'm sorry, I feel very sad about it. And I feel that I feel that a lot of you have sat in the previous administration, and I don't know where the blame comes from. I don't know who these investors were, these shady investors that did the downtown area and now they're gone. I don't know who they are and why that happened, but I think that we're getting the raw end of the deal of mismanagement and poor judgment. And I vote no for the tax.
just have this last name, so if there's anyone else that wants to speak, you know, I'll have the sign-up sheet here. It's Dominique Woolmuth.
Good evening. I, as well as Heather, did come
Name and
from-
address, please, first.
Oh, sorry. Dominique Woolmuth, 1721 Jenkinson Court. As well as Heather, I did come from Libertyville, and my parents started a restaurant 30-plus years ago in Libertyville. They came from Germany and Switzerland, and they basically came with not a lot in their pocket. One thing that my dad taught me, as far as a business owner is to take a lot of your own responsibility to try to get along also with the people that are representing your city. When they came here, times were probably pretty tough. As for the rest of us that are struggling through this time, sorry, it's very emotional for me. We understand what position you're in. We do hope that what we say you will take very seriously. The thing that really is upsetting to me is when my husband and I moved to Waukegan 20-some years ago, we had hopes that Waukegan was going to be successful. We came with the intention of putting our heart and soul into this, and it's just gone downhill, basically. All the businesses that have been here on Genesee Street, the restaurateurs that I've known, they've gone out of business. It's sad. They've invested their money. One in particular, architect, which is excellent friends with my father, lost so much money from the city of Waukegan. It was a shame. He invested so much money in the city, and when it all hit, there was not many people taking the blame for that. This is a man from Libertyville that invested his entire life savings into Waukegan, and he has nothing to show for it anymore. So, for the rest of us here who maybe don't have a lot of extra to invest in Waukegan right now, I would hope that you would understand how important it is to us not to lose our homes, to not get our value of our homes depreciate any more than what they are. And speaking on the school system, my daughter, my youngest daughter, I actually had to homeschool because I really feel that our school education system in Waukegan is lacking grossly. And not only that, I did have all three of my children in St. Anastasia and Immaculate Conception, and the amount of money that I paid there was a far cry from where Libertyville school children are, Gurnee school children, Highland Park, New Trier. So I chose to homeschool my child, and she right now, freshman year, is in high honor CSP classes. So I hope you take what we're all saying here very seriously. This is not a joke to us. These are our children, this is our town, and we want it to succeed. Thank you very much.
Michael Woolmuth.
I'm Michael Walmuth, 1721 Jenkinson Court, Dom's husband. You know, I know it's not an easy thing trying to revitalize the downtown, but it is just fallen flat. I look at what Kenosha did. What an amazing job revitalizing that. I think, you know, they had a little more street layout going for them, things like that. But looks like the town has run out of gasoline on this whole item. This was ballyhooed as, you know, revitalizing Waukegan and bringing a lot of income and business in. Where is it now? The other thing, the Genesee Theater, a lot of money dumped into that. And I feel it's really being mismanaged. You need to get some real professionals in there instead of filling up the time with movies, okay? It's nice to see movies, but if you take a look at what Milwaukee does with even with Turner Hall, a rundown dump has more going for it than the Genesee Theater. They pack that place often. Lot of good name brand entertainment. When I look and see what's going on at the Genesee, I go, who the hell are these people? I've never even heard of them before. Nobody's going to come to see mediocre entertainment. There's a lot of money sitting there. Who paid for it? The other thing is the Waukegan lakefront. That is the best beach you will find on the North Shore. It has natural sand that keeps replenishing itself, where other places have to bring it in, lay it out on the beach. It's never maintained. I see nothing but garbage on that beach. It's a wonderful beach. You guys need to do something with that. We have people coming in from Chicago all the time to enjoy that beach. When I'm on the beach, I hear Polish people, I hear Russians. They love that beach, okay? Do something with that. That is a natural money maker. You couldn't ask for something nicer than that beach. It keeps giving its own sand up. It's nice. You go up to Zion. What do you got? You got rocks. That is a great beach. You got sand flats. People love that place. It needs to be developed and it needs to be taken care of. And I'm just going to reiterate one more time with the Genesee Theater. That needs to be taken care of too. We are letting a golden opportunity go with both of these items. You've dumped the money into it, make the most of it. I want to see professional management that can bring in good talent. Thank you.
Margaret, is it Carrasco?
Margaret Carrasco, 532 North Lewis Avenue. No, Mayor, it's really interesting how sometimes history repeats itself. Your dad, when he was mayor, he had a really, really tough decision to make. And he did it. I think now it's your turn. I listened at the last meeting where you, and thank you for sharing the financial disaster that the city of Waukegan's in. And you mentioned some of the implications, how the city would be impacted in the event that we do not increase the levy. One of the things that you mentioned was about snow plowing. And you know what? Maybe we need to take a lesson from our residents here in Waukegan. A lot of our landscapers, very hardworking, just barely surviving. Guess what? Now they're not out snow plowing every single time a drop of snow falls, but rather they have the 1 inch, 2 inch, sometimes even 3 inch rule. They don't go out there to work until it's really 3 inches of snow. Well, maybe we need to do that and learn from our residents and how to adjust to what our financial restraints are. Since the last meeting, I have gone out and talked to a heck of a lot of people, residents in our community, business owners, all walks of life. And guess what? Not one, I don't care from the highest income to lowest income, not one person felt it was reasonable or didn't know how they were going to able to afford any kind of increase. Fixed income, senior citizens, who are true Waukeganites, have been here for so many years. It is unfair to jeopardize them losing their home, having to choose between food or other things just to make up for that money, because those that were in the past in charge just buried us in as far as misusing our money. I understand and very, I think it's wrong when you expressed about, that the retirement fund of the police officers, firemen were as far as impact, as far as the money being lost, and we had to make up for it. Well, guess what? Everyone else in the world lost money in their 401k and the retirement also. And no one's going to make up for the money that we lost. I don't think it should be us to make up for that money, but rather those persons, and you know who I'm talking about, that got us into that situation. They're laughing at the bank. They're getting their retirement check. I told you get rid of him from the day one when you got in the office. But now we got to pay for his retirement too. So now he gets 2 checks. Just lastly, I think that there's a lot of options available still. I do not, we are not, and not one person in Waukegan say, fire this person. No, that's not, I think everyone has friends or family members have lost and know how they suffer when they lose a job. So I really feel confident in our city council to come up with those creative ways. And in the end, maybe you need to do like your dad did. A big sign in front of City Hall. City of Waukegan now hiring people who will accept those wages and salaries that the City of Waukegan can afford. Those persons who come up to plate and say yes, those are the people we need to keep. And those persons who refuse to adjust just as everybody else has, maybe they should no longer be employed for the City of Waukegan. Thank you.
We don't have anyone else signed up. Is there anyone else that wants to make a statement while the hearing is still open? I'm not seeing any, so we close the public hearing.
Okay. This concludes the public hearing. I want to thank you for your comments. I appreciate the passion that you feel in this issue. Unfortunately, I don't have 2 or 3 hours to answer each one of your questions in detail right now, but I will tell you that each one does have an answer. I'm not going to say any more at this moment, so at this point, we'll take a motion. We'll take a 10-minute break until the city council meeting. We will have to adjourn, so I take a motion to adjourn by Alderman Cunningham, seconded by Alderman Moiseo. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Thank you.